All right, Republican U.S. Senate candidate Eric Hovde joins us for the rest of Front Page and also the first 10 minutes of Homepage, 11:05 to 11:15 on AM 680 and wogo.com. But right now, we greet him on this 73-degree Tuesday morning. Good morning, Eric.
Well, you're lucky it's 73 there. It's a lot hotter down in Madison. God, yesterday it was like desert winds blowing on you. But it's great being on the show with you, Mark.
All right. Saw your TV ad recently with, wasn't it, your kids were on there. It kind of harkened back to an ad. I mentioned it when I interviewed Ron Johnson last week, that it was an ad that reminded me of an ad that he had run in his campaign. As you were in the background reading the newspaper, tell us about your family. Introduce yourself to folks if they're not familiar with you a little bit.
Sure. I'm married. Have two daughters, Carlin, who's 23, who's working on a campaign, and Britta, who's 13. They're wonderful. Got a dog named Bull, an Airedale Terrier. I was born and raised in Wisconsin, third-generation Wisconsinite. Graduated from East High School, Madison East High School, and then went on to the University of Wisconsin. Graduated in 1986. Proud Badger. Go Badgers. They should have a good football team again this year. Diehard Packer fan. Started my business career, and it's been focused on the financial sector, primarily community banks. That's my main business. But I also have a real estate company down here in southern Wisconsin that my grandfather started, and then my father took over. And then when my dad went into the President Reagan's administration, he had to sell off a lot of the real estate company, and I went and rebuilt it about 20 years ago. So I'm your classic entrepreneur. I have an asset management business, community banks, and real estate, and involved in a technology company. And I finally decided to get involved and run for the U.S. Senate because I was worried about the direction this country is heading, most importantly with all the massive amounts of debt we continue to accumulate.
And you're making some news this morning, whether you intended to or not, and so let me give you a chance to respond to that, because here's the piece up at the Journal Sentinel website, and just in the last couple of minutes, they say Wisconsin businessman Eric Hovde has spent big bucks on TV and radio spots trying to garner voters' attention for his Republican bid for U.S. Senate, but it didn't cost him a nickel to land on many people's radars with his videotaped comments last week at the Greater Brookfield Chamber of Commerce. In his final remarks to the group, Hovde, a millionaire many times over, complained about the prevalence of news stories focusing on the travails of poor individuals during tough economic times. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin, in fact, has put out a 1-minute video today featuring this comment from you. I'll play it and get your response.
Stop always writing about, the person couldn't get, their food stamps or this or that.
So you're being hit for this. Why don't you give your side of it?
It's classic operation by the Democratic Party. They take a 13-minute speech talking about the issues facing our country, our debt issue, and then they clip out one little segment of it and try to blow it up and try to make a big point. Let me deal exactly with my point, and that is I talked to somebody in the press. I said it is critically important that the press no longer continues to focus solely on stories about people that are struggling, but talking about our debt issues, because here's the central issue, which they don't want to address. If we go to a debt crisis, if our government collapses, much like Spain, much like Greece, the people that get killed are the poor. It is devastating to those that are in the middle class and the poor. And my whole 13-minute discussion was about our debt issues, how we need to fix our economy, and we've got to get focused on that. And the simple fact is, when you pick up a newspaper or you watch TV, quite often they'll do the story about somebody, having difficulty getting their federal assistance, and yet we have more people on welfare and more people on food stamps, and nobody's talking about, hey, we are going to run into a financial collapse if we don't scale back the level of spending, simply put.
A Republican U.S. Senate candidate Eric Hovde with us here, Front Page, WWIB. If you want to sneak in a quick question, we'll take it at 723-2555 or 1-800-657-4769. I think you're a really likable guy. I think you've certainly introduced yourself as, even the reference there from the Journal-Sentinel article talked about you've spent some money on TV, radio ads previously, kind of backed off for a while, and been kind of reintroducing yourself again after Recall Mania died out. Yet, what about this is a really good field. As I was saying goodbye to my friend James Hirschman from Newsmax.com, I was telling him who you were. He's in California. And saying we have a really good field of Republican candidates. And we've heard you in the past talk about this is you just have seen your country and you're like, I want to do something. I've been successful in my chosen field of avocation. But, boy, this field, how do you ultimately what's your strategy to nose in front here between now and August 14th?
Get the message out. That's what I've been doing. I've been working hard. I was given a speech yesterday in Milwaukee. I have a speech tonight. We were supposed to have a debate. Governor Thompson decided not to show up again for another debate, so they've turned it into a forum. I'm out, talking, doing radio, having radio ads, television ads. I'm trying to get my message out and focus on the issues and, stay positive because I think the state is worn out with negative politics. That doesn't mean I'm not taking a lot of flack like you just talked about. But my focus is trying to explain the economic mess our country's in and how serious these problems are. I mean, right now we have, countries across the Atlantic Ocean that engaged in the same policies that President Obama and frankly, Republicans are culpable for it as well, of massively overspending what we're bringing in. And we've got now $16 trillion in debt, 100% debt to our economy. We're going to add another 6.5% this year, and we're borrowing 38 cents on every dollar we spend. That leads to financial collapse, and we've got to change the course. So I'm trying to stay focused on the issues.
And you support the Ryan budget plan, but in fact, do you believe we need to go even further than that?
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way. Last year we ran a $1.3 trillion deficit. This year it's probably going to be anywhere from $1.1 trillion to $1.3 trillion. Over the next decade, that means we're going to probably run somewhere around $11 to $13 trillion. But the simple fact is our government doesn't engage in something called GAAP accounting, accrual accounting. And what does that mean? We don't factor in our liabilities. So if you really look at our true liabilities on Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, our real deficits are more like $3.5 to $4.5 trillion. This is unsustainable. And as I said, that's exactly what's happened to Spain and Greece. I mean, they have unemployment rates in the mid-20s and youth unemployment rates for 25-year-olds and younger of over 50%. And their economies are sinking. It's getting worse every day. So we've got to be fiscally responsible, and our government hasn't been doing that for a long time. So, yes, I think Paul Ryan, what he proposed was a wonderful first step. I think even Paul will acknowledge it's the first, but a hugely important first step.
Let me ask
we need to go down that path.
Let me ask you one last question, and then we'll continue our conversation with Eric Hovde from 11:05 to 11:15 on homepage on AM 680 and WDOGO.com. But I think Mark Newman has this. We can look at his time in Congress and what he's said and some of his endorsement that he would be fiscally responsible. I think Fitzgerald, as the Assembly Speaker, when Act 10 was passed, can make that contention. But what about Tommy Thompson? I mean, you took a little bit of a swipe at him regarding even missing yet another of your Republican debates. Thompson has support and name recognition, but could he be trusted in terms of taking the necessary fiscal steps if he was elected?
Look, I think you have to look at a person's record, not what they say, their record. Tommy grew the state by 118%. He grew the state government bigger than Jim Doyle did. And furthermore, there was a very comprehensive article just last week in the Isthmus magazine here in Wisconsin that basically said a lot of the problems that Scott Walker inherited were born in the Tommy's time frame. Because what he did is, he said he held down the increases in the rate of salary increases. What he did, he pushed all the benefits to the back end, pension benefits, insurance benefits, all these things that were embedded during Tommy's time were the problems that Scott Walker inherited. So
right.
you got to look at the track record.
Eric, for people who want to learn more at your website, they can certainly follow you on Facebook, or what's your website?
Eric4Senate.com. That's
All right.
Eric with a C.